Yeah.
This is How Nessie Saved Me by Ryan Mcgregor. Scene 1, exterior day, 1995, Loch Ness, late morning, fade in. A grebe races at breakneck speed towards the ruin of Urquhart Castle in the distance.
As early as the 6th century AD, tales have been told of the monster in the loch.
The ruins become clearer. The outlines of a fair start to materialize. Rows of stalls can be seen with people dipping in and out. A bandstand sits off to the side, whilst Renaissance actors are busy carrying out mock sword fights and archery skills.
Throughout the years, the story of the monster would become woven into Scottish mythology.
Near to the lake, a large tarpaulin covers something up. The grebe arrives at the ruins where it dips in and out of the now decrepit windows and holes left by years of decay.
The story that follows is one of love, sadness, hope, friendship, and monsters.
The grebe suddenly takes a turn towards the fair and soars over the heads of a young child walking hand in hand with his parents and grandmother.
This is my story.
The grebe flies upwards to show the full colours of the bird in the sunlight before flying away as the title is shown in the sky, Maggie and the Loch Ness Monster. Scene 2, a day at the fair. The grebe is reflected in the boy's eyes before it flies away. The sound of bagpipes playing the Black Bear softly in the background as it mingles with the sounds of the lively fair. There is a look of wonderment across the child's face as he bounces up and down holding his parents' hand.
Can we see the statue now?
Patience, little one, you'll see it soon.
But I want to see it now.
Alistair.
Your granny has told you to be patient.
I know. I just don't want to miss it when they show it.
Don't worry, little one. They can't unveil it until I get there, so we'll have plenty of time.
Can we get some sweets for later then? Oh, and a teddy bear. Can I get my face painted?
I'm sure we can do all of those things, little one.
As the family continue to walk down the stalls, Granny Maggie and Alistair's parents laugh as he fires off a series of questions that he is not really looking at having answered. But in his excitement and the unveiling of the statue, he simply cannot contain his thoughts any longer. Scene 3, a girl and her Nessie. A gathering crowd is at the statue. The surrounding landscape of Loch Ness can be seen from behind the makeshift stand and covered statue. There is a general hum of voices as members of the crowd talk to one another. The mayor walks in and heads to the microphone stand and addresses the crowd and local news crew that are recording a segment for later in that day. Good afternoon, everyone. How are you all today? Oh, I think
wonderful.
ad lib, that is, yeah. Thank you all for coming out to beautiful Loch Ness today and for joining us in honouring a lady who has helped to influence our understanding of life under the water and of the dinosaurs that roamed the world.
Woo-hoo.
Now, please help me to give a warm welcome to our special guest, Margaret Mcgregor.
Woo.
Woo. Granny Maggie walks up to the microphone stand where she shakes hands with the mayor before addressing the crowd.
Thank you all so much for coming today for this special occasion. Little did I know what lay ahead of me when I first stood on these banks all those years ago as a young girl, looking for the legendary Loch Ness Monster. Everything I have today and everything I've worked towards, I owe it all to Nessie, for without her, I wouldn't be here today. Thank you.
As Granny Maggie finishes speaking, the crowd applaud her as the mayor then signals to two people standing next to the statue. They pull on the ropes in their hands to remove the tarpaulin. As it falls, it reveals the statue, a marble statue of a young Maggie wearing 1940s attire and holding a book behind her back as she looks up in wonderment at Nessie, who is looking down at Maggie as her body wraps around the young girl. A steel plaque is attached to the bottom of the statue that reads Maggie and Nessie. Cameras take pictures with the sounds of cheering and a soft accompaniment of bagpipes as they resume their set list. Granny Maggie is standing with a tear in her eye as she looks at the statue. Scene 4, every story has a new beginning. Alistair. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to read that.
Was the Loch Ness Monster real, Granny?
Granny, Maggie and Alistair are sitting down on the bench beside the statue. The crowd have moved back to the fair to enjoy the day's activities. The mayor and news crew have left to resume their official duties and editing.
Oh, indeed, my dear. We went on quite an adventure when I first met her.
Ooh, can you tell me, Granny? Were there pirates? Or zombies? Or aliens?
Nothing quite like that, my dear. Although there were dinosaurs and a very evil monster hunter. And robots.
Please, Granny. Can you tell me?
We can hear the story later, Alistair. Why don't we go explore the fair?
But I want to hear the story.
You know, my dear, my feet are a little bit sore, so I fancy a sit down. Be a good son and fetch me a nice cup of tea, please.
Will do, Mum. Come on, dear, let's see what food they have to offer.
We'll be back with your tea shortly.
Mother and father head off in the fair, searching for food and drinks, pointing and looking at stalls along the way. Maggie turns to Alistair as she begins her story.
Now then, my dear, shall we begin?
Yes, please. When does the monster hunter arrive, Granny?
All in good time, but to tell the story correctly, we need to go right back to the beginning where my tale begins.
To when you were born?
Indeed, but first, we just need to wait a few more seconds.
Why, Granny?
There is a sound of water bubbling as a large shadow covers Granny, Maggie and Alistair. Alistair's jaw drops.
My old friend to arrive.
Scene 5, a legend is born. London Maternity Hospital, 24th of March, 1930. It's mid-afternoon in the Islington borough of London. The sun breaks through the cloudy sky every now and then. Various birds dart across the skyline as the busy hum of the city drifts upwards. Construction work, trains running, cars driving on the streets all merge together to make up a song of a working day in London. A distant sound of a baby crying is heard. The father is arriving through the door, having been allowed back into the room after the birthing process. As the father stands next to the mother, a midwife brings over their baby wrapped in a blanket to keep it warm, to hand it over. Here you are, one healthy baby.
Girl, my dear.
The mother holds the baby to pass her to the father, who takes her carefully. He looks down lovingly at her.
But what should we call her?
How about Margaret, after my grandmother?
I like it. Welcome to the world, Margaret Murray.
Maggie's eyes stay closed as she sleeps. Scene 6, war is declared. Maggie's eyes open. She is now 9 years old. She's playing around the front room of her parents' house with a small ball that she's bouncing up and down. Her father is at work and her mother is sitting down with a cup of tea on a nearby seat. The nearby radio is on and detailing the concerning events surrounding the events leading up to World War II.
And so, ladies and gentlemen, on this dark day, I can now confirm Britain has declared war on Germany.
Mother looks out of the window at this news as this news is unveiled. Her attention is broken with the sound of Maggie's voice.
Mummy, what is war? Nothing, sweetheart, nothing you need to worry about. Now, how about we go for a walk in the park? Can we feed the ducks, please? Of course we can. Go get yourself ready now.
Maggie runs out of the room to get herself ready, humming a nursery rhyme tune as she goes, as Mother once again has a concerned look on her face as she turns to face the window. Scene 7, the Blitz. Mother's face is lit up in the darkness of the bomb shelter as the sound of the airplanes, engines, explosions, and the whistle of falling bombs echo throughout the city. Maggie is cowering in her arms. Mother is attempting to keep Maggie calm.
All right, sweetheart, it'll be over soon. Just keep your eyes closed.
The deafening sound quietens down as the bombing planes move away. Maggie unfurls herself from her mother's arms.
Have they gone away? I think so, sweetheart. Wait here while I go. Sorry. I think so, sweetheart. Wait here a while. I go and make sure it's safe.
Mother moves towards the door to the bomb shelter and pauses as she listens. Hearing no sounds of planes or bombs outside, she cautiously opens the door. From inside the shelter, Maggie can see the destruction that has happened. Mother steps out into the open and turns around. We see that she is wearing the uniform of an air raid warden.
Oh, clear, sweet.
Mother never gets to finish her sentence as the full force of a bomb that lands but didn't initially explode goes off and engulfs her in a fireball. Maggie watches in horror as her mother vanishes in the fireball. Tears pour down her face and the words she wants to scream are caught in her throat. Scene 8, shell-shocked. Maggie is sitting in a makeshift triage centre. Doctors, nurses, and other emergency personnel are seen bustling around with speed as they see to all their patients. A doctor is shining a light into her eye.
Well, she's not completely unresponsive, but she is suffering from a great deal of trauma.
Will she recover, Doctor?
In time, she will. Where are her parents?
Her father's a munitions expert and has been in Scotland for the last 6 years. Her mother was caught in a blast where we found the girl.
Ah, I see. Send a message up to her father that his daughter will be evacuated to him later this week.
Of course, Doctor. Will she be okay?
Only time will tell. Physically, she's fine, but that level of mental trauma at her age will be hard to heal.
Even the children are no longer safe in this horrid war.
The nurse picks up Maggie's file and leaves. The doctor looks back at Maggie and places a comforting hand on her arm.
Hopefully you'll find some peace in Scotland with your father.
Maggie's eyes continue to stare at nothing. Scene 9, from England to Scotland. The hiss of steam from the wheels, coupled with the shrill whistle of the evacuation train, snap Maggie out of her daze. She is in a compartment with a few other children who are all designated Scotland as their evacuation point. They're talking amongst themselves, but Maggie is not really listening. She tightens her grip on the small teddy the nurse brought her before she was discharged from the hospital. A girl's voice snaps her attention back to the carriage once more. Where are you being sent to?
I'm going to Scotland to live with my father.
Oh, I'm going somewhere in North Yorkshire with a few other children. What's it like in Scotland?
I've never been there before, only heard about it.
Ah, is your dad excited to see you?
He left when I was 4 and I haven't seen him in 6 years, so I don't know if he wants me there, really.
But hopefully he will be, or at least this war will be over soon and we can go home again. Perhaps we'll be in the same train home and we can swap stories about our adventures together. Maggie manages a small smile as she looks at the young girl before turning her head to face the window again. Memories of her mother flooding into her mind caused her heart to fill with sorrow, and she could feel the tears starting to build up once more in her eyes.
That would be nice.
Sorry. The young girl looks at Maggie for a few more seconds before returning her attention to the other children on the train, who are now jumping in and out of the carriages as the conductor slowly gets more and more annoyed with them.
If my father doesn't want me, will I return to London at all? There's nothing left in the city for me now.
Maggie watched as the landscape flew past as steam from the engine drifted past like clouds while the wheels beat out a steady rhythm. Her eyes closed as she drifts off to sleep. Scene 10, everyone off. The shrill whistle of the train woke Maggie up with a jolt. Rubbing her eyes, she looks out of her window to see they have arrived at Inverness train station. She looks around and notices that she's the last one left in her carriage. The conductor walks past her carriage and looks in to check it's empty.
Everyone must depart from the train now, miss. Come on, we need to get back to London.
Maggie grabs her small suitcase and her teddy and makes a hasty walk to the door of the carriage, issuing a quick apology.
Sorry, sir.
The conductor watches her go to the exit before turning back to check the rest of the train is empty before departing. Scene 11, a no-show. Maggie steps into the bustling platform. Children are being shepherded in all directions as volunteers and family members collect them. Maggie looks around for her father but cannot see him among the crowd. Maggie spots an empty bench and sits down to wait until the crowd disappears. Slowly, the train station empties until only Maggie is left with her father, nowhere to be seen. She looks at her feet and squeezes her teddy bear to her chest.
Miss Murray, I presume.
Maggie looks up and around for the source of the voice and spots the gentleman standing nearby.
Yes, that's me.
The gentleman walks towards Maggie and tips his hat to her as he reaches the bench.
Good afternoon, Miss Murray. Allow me to introduce myself. I'm Douglas Mcgregor. I'm your father's butler.
You work with my father?
For your father, yes. I run his household for him.
Did you bring him here to collect me?
I'm afraid not, Miss Murray. Your father's considerably busy with the war effort right now and could not be here today.
Maggie looks down again at her feet, trying to hold on to her tears, but once again her father decided he did not want to be with her. Mr. Mcgregor, seeing this, attempts to cheer her up.
However, I have been instructed to look after you as you are my own daughter, and I may say so myself. It doesn't seem like a good afternoon to grab an ice cream.
Maggie looks up slowly to Mr. Mcgregor, who is smiling at her. Okay. Yeah, we will end our excerpt. I'm just going to say a few things about format, and then I'll leave you guys to talk about the story and everything else. So I'd say that this had been a novel. The reason I'm saying that is because a large percentage of it is in the past tense and has been missed occasionally when you flipped into the present tense. A script is written in the present tense. So there are sections of it where you've got the past tense. And I would say that is because it's been lifted from a novel. I may be wrong, and if I am, I apologize, but that's what it feels like to me. Because there's also quite a lot of what's called interiority of this character. There's information that we're not going to know about, and particularly towards the end, I'm thinking, where she's concerned, you know, her teddy bear, and so there's information about why she's got that teddy bear with her. We're not going to know that. We're watching it and listening to it. Unless you have a scene showing her being given that teddy, we're not going to know any of the stuff that she's thinking. So the scene headings do not read like scene headings. They read like titles of chapters, if you like. And that's not how you break up scenes, because some of these scenes have other scenes embedded within them. So you start out getting there because you've got exterior day 1995, Loch Ness late morning. So yes, that's, you know, just needs tidying up, ext for exterior. But yeah, essentially that's a scene heading. But then scene 2 goes a day at the fair. Well, that's like a heading for a chapter. That's not a scene heading. Scene 2, and plus, aren't we in the same place as scene 1? Isn't it just an extension of scene 1? Because we are, because we've got the grebe still and the boy, and if there is a break in time, then you need to put later or something like that, or later in the day, as a scene heading. And then, so I'm just trying to clarify these scene headings because I think that would really help a lot. Again, a girl and her Nessie, that's not a scene. I mean, it is a scene, and you need to delineate at the statue, maybe. You know, you can, if you've got the main heading, which is at the fair, Loch Ness at the fair, then you've got a scene which is at the statue. So your scene headings need to tell you where you are. They're the location of where you are. Okay. They're not sort of describing what's happening. So scene 4, every story has a new beginning, not a scene heading. Okay. And again, they're still at the bench by the statue. So it's actually still a continuation of the previous scene. It's a shot rather than a scene. Okay. So then you've got scene 5, A Legend is Born. You have a genuine scene heading there, London Maternity Hospital. That's a scene heading. But you don't need that A Legend is Born unless you're going to use those little kind of headings that you've got as superimposed as titles, for instance, in each section. And that would work. You could do that, but you'd have to indicate that they are titles over. So do you see, I'm hoping that you're catching on. Scene 6, war is declared. Again, if I was going to use that, I would put it as what's called a super. It's superimposed over and actually have that. But what we've actually got is we've got Maggie at 9 years old and she's in the front room of her parents' house. So literally that scene heading is interior, parents' house, front room, day. That's your scene heading. Okay. So I think what you really need to do is just have a look at some scripts to see how they are written, to see how they're set out. Other than that, it rolls forward quite nicely, but it does read more like a novel. And I'll leave the rest to everybody else. Ian.
I found, if it just to dwell on the formatting a little bit, I found it quite off-putting as I was reading it. I think because it's a structure we're not familiar with, as you just explained, and the bold, a lot of use of bold and italics, I just found a bit jarring as well. It didn't quite, it didn't make it easy to read. I think it just kind of not what we're used to, and I think we should emphasize we need that location and time of day, and all of that has to be there to help us understand the scene and be able to read the scene as the writer is expecting. I think we can't guess what that might be. Other than that, I think there's a story here. I think, a sort of fantasy, kind of story. Perhaps, Nessie will arrive at some point. And I think I picked up, maybe I'm wrong, that her name is Mcgregor later on. So is there some connection with the Mr. Mcgregor, that family? Does she become part of his family? Is there a father at all? So there's quite a few things I think to explore. And I'd like to see the story. I'd like to see the story. I think we need a lot more work on the script, if you like. So.
Thank you. Yeah. Erin.
Well, I was curious because based on the structure, if it was supposed to be a film or what was going on with it too. I like the idea of, the super or the title or the card or whatever for like 1995 and the different introductions of different things where he has the scene. I think that was kind of like interesting. Everything that you guys said too. Also the on page 9, when it says memories of her mother flooding into her mind caused her heart to fill with sorrow. I don't know if that's something you want the young actor to show, or if you actually want that as a flashback. I mean, a lot of this is told in flashback, because if 1995 is our present day, then and so like making that really clear in the script is really important. And the also when she's kind of like talking to herself, I didn't know if that's supposed to be like a voiceover or if she's actually sitting there talking to herself. It's like the same scene right there. Also, the Granny Maggie uses the same words a lot over and over and over again, and I don't know if that's intentional or not. Like she calls her grandson little one a lot, and then I think it was a little confusing as to the young child and Alistar being the same person. And then I love the idea of anything with the Loch Ness Monster, but like I also like that it kind of reminds me of, like Ian was saying, like fantasy. It kind of has like a vibe of like Peach Dragon and the Secret Garden kind of, and it's a little bit of a different take on like the World War II, which is I think interesting. I don't know. I'm really interested to see where this is going.
Okay, thank you.
Rachel.
Yeah, I agree with what everyone else said. I think once we've sorted a few typos and format and things like that out, you've got a good story going here. There's some rich and interesting characters. There's already been some trauma and sort of some dramatic events going on. I really like the granny character telling the story. I think people love that, especially with a mythological sort of thing like this. I think it's got some promise for sure. Once you sort of tidy it up a little bit. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. You reminded me. Names. who was it? Erin, you mentioned the young child and Alistair being the same. So we don't need the young child, we just need his name, Alistair, at the start. But the other thing is, there's a lot of people here that don't have names. And we're always saying this. Actors like to have, especially if they've got lines to say, they like to know what their character's name is. So it's always a good idea to name every character, unless they're really incidental and aren't doing anything except hovering in the background. So the mother and father, there's two sets of mothers and fathers. There's the young mother and father, and then there's presumably the grandparents, or the parent. No, they're the parents of Maggie, aren't they? So they're actually the great grandparents of Alistair. Anyway, whatever they are, there's two sets of mother and father. They need to have names because they do speak, and that would then mean that we wouldn't get them mixed up, because they're both sets are called mother and father. Yeah, that's it really. With that,
we don't. We also need an introduction or description of these characters, don't we?
Yes.
and we do. Yes, we do very much. Each character needs an introduction, so we need to know their name, their age, or a rough approximation of their age, and usually it's called a tag word to give us an overview of what they're like, and it's usually just something, you know, completely random. It's not particularly descriptive. It is a descriptor, isn't it? But it's not particularly descriptive. For instance, you might have a mother who is, I don't know, 30s, mother 30s anxious. Maybe that's how she goes through her life. She's always anxious. So it's just something that we can hang on to and work out how people should be considering her. I think that's it really.
Yeah, I would definitely have a look at some scripts online and see how those descriptors go and stuff. And you know, you obviously know these characters very well inside and out. They've, you know, they're very interesting. They've got history and stuff. So I think that'll be quite easy.
Maybe The Princess Bride too, because that one is told from the point of view of the grandfather, right? Isn't it? And then it goes to this other story, which is a little bit different. Or like maybe Edward Scissorhands. I don't know. Aren't those both told from the point of view of somebody, an older person telling the story? I might be wrong.
No, I think you're right.
Find them like that. You might be able to see like what the structure, the way they structured it. You know.
Yes, I mean any good film, any film really will show you formatting and structure and how to structure different scenes and things like that. The important thing is, if this has been a book, you're not going to be able to put your blocks of action in the same as in a book and just change it into the present tense. That's not how a script works. But as it is a book, and as Rachael has said, you do know the story and you know the characters. So it's just about how it's presented, really, to make it easy for everybody.
Yeah, I'm excited to see where it goes.
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds like an interesting story.
Definitely.
Thanks for that. I think we'll call it a day.